All right, let's talk Kansas City Chiefs. Look, we all know it. The Chiefs have to make a run at the end of the season, pretty much win out to make sure they're in a good position to return to the Super Bowl through the AFC, which, if we're being honest, is very winnable. A lot of injuries they're dealing with, which means they're going to have to make a strategic change, and it looks like the Chiefs are going to do that by unleashing a promising young rookie. We'll get to that reporting plus some interesting data. But first, I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, the Kansas City Chiefs are, of course, coming off a disappointing loss on Thanksgiving. Patrick Mahomes played outstanding. Defense couldn't get enough stops. And when all push came to shove, they just couldn't get enough plays out of their offense when they really needed them to in the course of that middle part of the game. And obviously now heading into a big-time matchup against the Houston Texans team this weekend that's playing really good football, especially on defense. Mahomes and company on offense are going to have a heck of a day. But dealing with the injuries on the offensive line now, the Chiefs are going to have some struggles. They're going to have to make some game plan adjustments. And based on some recent reporting, one of those adjustments is finally going to be the emergence to a whole nother level of a rookie we've been really high on this channel, and that is Brashard Smith. Let's get into the reporting, then we'll get into the data on the other side. This is courtesy of Pete Sweeney on X. He said, I asked Patrick Mahomes about the Chiefs' banged-up offensive line, and he noted that with the talent of the Texans front, he'll have to get the ball out of his hands fast and hit the deep shots they may get. So it's that middle phrase there, have to get the ball out of his hands fast. Now, if you look at the receiver room, I mean, it's a lot of explosive plays. Worthy, right? Rasheed Rice can be a quick hitter for sure. But Hollywood Brown, Worthy, those guys are big play guys. Those are guys that need time to throw the football down the field. Kelsey can be quick, but at this point in his career, they've been doing a lot more developing and creating opportunities in sort of the intermediate game. I'm not saying they won't use him in the quick game, but they may not be as likely to. What does that mean? It means Brashard Smith is going to be the guy. I'm expecting him to have a monster game against the Houston Texans, and the Texans have surrendered a lot of receiving yards to this style of running back. The Buccaneers running backs, which are great receivers out of the backfield, got a bunch of targets and a bunch of receptions against the same defense earlier in the season. I expect a similar kind of attack here from Patrick Mahomes. And when it comes to number 15, and before we get to the data on Smith, I do want to bring up an important point. We know Mahomes is just physically gifted to the extreme, right? Some of the plays, especially that deep throw to Worthy late against Dallas to get them back in the game, and of course the fourth down conversions, were otherworldly plays, right? Beautiful throws. But one of the things that's slept on with Mahomes is, much like Tom Brady, obviously the only other modern quarterback that's in his league, I think Brady's resume a little bit better now, of course, but Mahomes, of course, work in that direction, is the ability to read the defense and make the quick right throw to the open guy. And at times, it's been the deep shot to Tyreek Hill is the right way to do it. Sometimes it's the intermediate throws to Kelsey or some of these receivers. Sometimes it's hit the running back out of the backfield. And I think that's going to be Brashard Smith. Obviously, this talented back has had moments of doing a lot of good things, had a great day against the Raiders. In fact, let's pull up his game log here to kind of talk about his sort of performance as a receiver, which is what I think he'll come out with in a monster way against the Houston Texans. And you can see in terms of what he was doing with the football in the middle part of the season, he had 3 receptions, 5 receptions, on pretty efficient on 3 receptions on 4 targets, 3 receptions on 3 on 4, and then 5 on 5. Then a little bit of a tail off, then a couple more in a solid game against the Colts, none against Dallas. And I think what happened with the Dallas Cowboys, if I'm being honest, is that the Kansas City Chiefs went into that game on short week's rest. It's Thanksgiving. It's just the way it works, is that you kind of have to run your base. And that means a lot of the rookies aren't going to get the opportunities. You're not going to have a game plan for the rookies to the new guys to step up. And that's what we kind of saw from the Chiefs. It was a very Patrick Mahomes, led team. It's 100% on Mahomes creating magic. And he did a great job. It just wasn't enough because of the lack of defensive stops. But now they've got more time. Now I think they can integrate Brashard Smith. And if you notice some of his most productive games there in the middle of the season, that's when Simmons had to leave the team the first time. Obviously, again, it's not perfectly correlated, but I do think there's some causation there. When they lose your starting left tackle, got to throw the football quicker, Brashard Smith gets more opportunities. Obviously, Simmons is out. He's on IR. Great Houston pass rush. What does that mean? Brashard Smith is going to get a ton of opportunities. Patrick Mahomes, I think, just alluded to it, and I think he's going to have a monster day. Again, the Houston Texans, how they work defensively is they want you. They want you to play the way the Chiefs played on Thanksgiving. Hold on to the football and try and attack him deep, because their pass rush is extraordinary and their corners and safety play is very good, right? The Colts with their offense, the Colts ran the football and moved the ball pretty well in Houston, but when it came time to hit those big plays that the Colts like to do to break games open, the Texans are able to shut them down with their pass rush. I think the Chiefs can beat them the way the Patriots under Brady used to beat teams, death by 1,000 cuts, and that means Brashard Smith is going to have a massive game. I really do. I think he's going to have 10 plus targets. I think he's going to take over this game, and we're going to see the emergence of a budding receiving star in Smith. But let's pull up some more data on Smith. Let's look at his PFF grades. Now, I'm going to admit I'm not the biggest PFF fan in terms of how they grade things, but I think in this one they got a pretty good idea of Smith's skill set. And you can see right there, again, in that middle part of the season, under the passing column specifically, which is receiving from Brashard Smith, he is outstanding. For anyone who's not familiar with PFF, the way their grading scale works is that if you get in the low to mid 60s, that's sort of like, okay, that's average, that's okay. That's sort of a replacement level player. High 60s, a little bit above average. You get in the low to mid 70s, that's a solid player. High 70s to low to 80s, that's a good, really good player. Mid to high 80s, that's like a Pro Bowl player, that's like a stud, maybe even all pro guy. In the 90s, that's all pro, Hall of Fame level kind of stuff, right? That's normally how the grades work. And you can notice when it comes to running, a 50 grade so far this season. Not so good, of course. We look at his not a whole lot of opportunities. I think only 29 carries, but so far nothing special running the football, although I like what he did at times against the Raiders especially. But if you look at him as a receiver, 82.3 grade, that's Pro Bowl level as a receiver out of the backfield. And again, that's what teams can do against the Houston Texans, against teams that play the way Houston plays. The Buffalo Bills tried to do this with their backfield, but Josh Allen just couldn't humble himself to not start scrambling and try and take over the game himself. And again, that's how Houston wants to play. They want to go to star quarterbacks and say, Lamar Jacksons, the Allens, the Mahomes, and say, hey, take over the game. We dare you, because we're going to get home 8 times. And our secondary is really good. But if you treat the Texans defense the way Tom Brady treated similar defenses, hit the check down. 4 yards, 8, 3, 7, 6, 5. You will destroy them. You will eviscerate them. And I think that's what the Chiefs are going to do with Brashard Smith. I think he's going to have a massive game. Mahomes is going to have a weird statistical game. He's going to be like 35 of 45 for maybe like 290. Like it's not going to be a lot of big plays, honestly. But I think they're going to dink and dunk, control the ball, be efficient, and I think they have a great opportunity to score more points than people think against this Texans defense. All right, Chiefs fans, we got more to talk about today, but first, I want to hear from you guys in the comment section below. Obviously, heading into what is essentially a must-win for the Kansas City Chiefs, give us your prediction. Final score, Texans-Chiefs, right? This game could go a bunch of different ways. I love the fact that the game is at home for Kansas City. They get an extended rest, mini bye after Thanksgiving. Obviously, dealing with a ton of injuries on O-line, however, that's a disappointment. But the reality is, I trust this team at home in a lot of different ways. I want to hear you guys, though. What do you think of the final score? Give us your prediction. Again, now's your chance before the big matchup this weekend. But let's get into the matchup. Let's pull up here the matchup predictor per ESPN. And you can see up top there, they got their ESPN Analytics matchup predictor. They got Kansas City with a 64.9% chance to win. They got Houston with only a 34.8% chance to win, with Houston with a better record, although it is on the road for Houston. That seems kind of strange at first glance. There is still a slight chance of a tie. If any of you guys watching who are mathematically inclined know that mathematically inclined, I should say, know that 64.9 plus 34.8 is not equivalent to 100, because there is a small chance of a tie. Thank you, Dallas. Thank you, Green Bay, for proving that earlier this season. But the Kansas City Chiefs are basically not quite, but pretty close, 2-1 favorites. We'll call it 66-33, roughly, right? Which is, again, a big thing to say for a Texans team that's 7-5 and playing a lot of good football. To be a 2-1 underdog per the analytics is a big shocker. But I think when you look at this Chiefs team and you look at Mahomes and you look at their defense and how they play on a snap-by-snap basis, they've been really, really good, right? They took it to the Colts they dominated the Colts, toe-to-toe with the Cowboys. That was a crazy back-and-forth game, could have gone either way. And if you look at the losses, right, the loss to Jacksonville, they're better than Jacksonville on a snap-by-snap basis. They just got big played, right? You look at a lot of their losses this season, it's been, boy, they were right there. They just a big play here, a big play there. They just couldn't quite get it, right? This Chiefs team on an efficiency basis is outstanding, and of course their quarterback play is A+. Big reason why the analytical models love them, and I think that's why they're in a great position to come away with the victory this Sunday. Now, when you look at the odds courtesy of DraftKings there at the bottom, things get a little interesting. So the game opened up with a 43.5 over-under, and the Chiefs as a 5.5 point home favorite. For those of you who are unfamiliar, the home team in the NFL, if it's a good home field advantage, what the Chiefs obviously have, is worth about 3 points. So basically, the game opened with the Chiefs being identified as 2.5 points better as a roster, as a team, than the Houston Texans, even though the Texans have a better record and are playing pretty good football. I think that feels right. I feel like the Texans have escaped with a lot of close games. They've had some close losses too, but boy, they're hanging on by the skin of their teeth. The Chiefs kind of on the other side of that coin as well. I trust Mahomes over CJ Stroud. Nothing against Stroud, but if it's a close game, 15 over 7, I take 15. But I think what's interesting here is that the spread has narrowed over the past week or so, and you can see right now the Chiefs are only a 3.5-point favorite, and the total, the over/under number, has dropped by 41 to 41.5 from 43.5. What does that mean? I think it means the offensive line injuries are making Vegas, the sports books, and have the people betting big money move money away from the Chiefs scoring more points. That's exactly what that is. And I think right there, that's a saying of, we don't know what to expect from guys like Brashard Smith. And I get it from a sportsbook perspective. You don't really know. You could imagine him playing well. And I think when you look at the data and look at the numbers, and we'll circle back to that one more time in a second, I think you'll have a monster game. But if you're going to bet money, which these sports books, these casinos, right, we're talking billions and billions of dollars, you're not going to bet money on a rookie on what you think may happen. You're going to go for, a safer play. So I think we saw the spread narrow, money move away from the Chiefs scoring more points just because of the O-line injuries. The Texans have a great defense, of course. I think they feel right now that's like, listen, this feels maybe like a 20-17 game either way based on how things go, probably in the Chiefs' favor. But right now with the injuries at O-line, a lot of sports books, a lot of big money, not too inclined to trust the Chiefs. However, Brashard Smith, I think he's the X factor. I'm going to walk through his numbers once again. This is, again, looking at his season. He's got 19 catches on 26 targets, 8.5 yards per catch, nothing special there. You can see at the bottom, but his efficiency and his productivity when Simmons was out spiked up. We saw it the last couple weeks before the Cowboys game. Again, that's a special exception, short notice Thanksgiving game. He had 3 targets 2 weeks before, and then 4 targets against the Colts, none against Dallas, again on Thanksgiving. I think that number will go up to that 3-4 range at minimum, and considering the injuries on offensive line, and considering how good the Texans are rushing the passer, I expect his productivity in terms of targets and receptions to skyrocket on Sunday. And I also expect, because of his passing receiving grade, again, per PFF right there on the screen, that he will be very efficient with those. Because no matter who he's played, when he's gotten more targets, and you'll notice a lot of his better scores align with more opportunities, right? For example, he got no opportunities against Dallas, a 56 grade. Got a lot of opportunities against Indianapolis, or a fair amount, 77.2 grade. So he's a guy, Brashard Smith, who when he gets more opportunities, excels. That's what I love to see in a guy who's ready to break out and take over a game. A guy that when he gets more touches, he plays better. And I think in this upcoming matchup, he definitely will get more touches. Now, look, this is going to be a close game. It's the Chiefs this year. It would be a shonker if it wasn't a close game. But I trust Kansas City. I really do. This is a team that played well against Dallas. They did. It was just a close game. Doesn't go all your way. Dallas played great. Pickens went off, had a crazy game. So did CeeDee Lamb, right? The Cowboys can score points, or at least have been able to score points a lot this season. Right, they beat the Colts, who are a really good team, and they dominated the Colts on a snap-by-snap basis. And if you look at the Chiefs' schedule, they've been playing really good football. It just hasn't quite gone their way in those close contests this season. And I think starting this weekend, things turn around. I really do, because if I look at the AFC West, the Broncos, listen, they're in a great position, and they're having a magical season, but I don't know if it's sustainable in the playoffs. The Chargers are beat up. The Ravens are beat up, and Lamar Jackson looks very iffy. The Steelers, we know the Steelers don't look great, and then you look, of course, the Patriots are super young. The Bills have a lot of flaws, and then we, of course, the AFC South. I think the best team in that division could be maybe Houston, could be Indianapolis, could be Jacksonville. We have no idea. So the window's open for Kansas City. It's a wide open competitive landscape. I think it starts this weekend, getting back in the winning column and starting to stack wins and play better and really head to the postseason with momentum. And I think, again, Brashard Smith is about to be unleashed. That's not my opinion. If you listen to what Patrick Mahomes is saying, he's going to lead that charge. And I think Smith, when you look at what he did with Simmons out and what he did during a normal week, where I'm expecting a lot of targets, I'm expecting a lot of receptions, and I think when it's all said and done, he'll be the X factor against Houston.